All right, we turn now to this. The White House has opened its own investigation into President Biden's use of the autopen to sign critical documents while in office, including pardons for some of his closest family members. Newsmax now confirming White House staff are reviewing tens of thousands of pages of documents turned over by the National Archives and Records Administration.
Meanwhile, the House Oversight Committee is pursuing an investigation of their own. Former First Lady Jill Biden, her aide, Anthony Bernal, he was on Capitol Hill earlier today, where he refused to testify before Congress. He took the Fifth Amendment. The committee is now issuing a subpoena to Biden's former Deputy Chief of Staff, Annie Tomasini, to appear before the committee on Friday.
Our chief Washington correspondent, James Rosen, is live in our nation's capital with the very latest. James, what can you tell us?
Katrina and Bob, good afternoon. Few officials in the Biden White House wielded more power more quietly than Anthony Bernal. As a senior advisor to First Lady Dr. Jill Biden with the dual title of assistant to the president, the low-key Bernal enjoyed intimate access to the first family and to all facets of White House operations. Bernal backed out of a voluntary interview with House Oversight Committee staff last month after President Trump waived executive privilege. He appeared today pursuant to subpoena, only to invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination.
So we've identified the people that we believe were the ones using the autopen. Now we're starting to bring people that we believe may have authorized the staffers to use the autopen. So we're just trying to trace this back to figure out if Joe Biden had any idea whether or not people were signing his name on legal documents like pardons and executive orders.
Meantime, Newsmax has confirmed that the White House counsel's office in the Trump administration has launched its own probe into the autopen controversy. White House aides say the counsel is working in tandem with the Department of Justice to review some 27,000 pages of documents turned over by the National Archives. The former president himself told the New York Times last week, quote, "I made every decision about his unprecedented use of the chief executive's pardon power in his final days in office," but he also acknowledged he did not examine personally every grant of clemency.
What Biden did is he ended our policies, went to his policies. He doesn't have a policy. Some lunatic around the desk had a policy. Whoever operated the autopen had a policy, which is, by the way, I think the biggest scandal. That's the scandal they should be talking about, not Jeffrey Epstein. The scandal you should be talking about is the autopen, because I think it's the biggest scandal, one of them in American history.
Bernal is now the second former Biden aide to plead the fifth. Dr. Kevin O'Connor, the former president's personal physician, did likewise last week. Neera Tanden and Ashley Williams, two former White House aides, appeared voluntarily. Tanden said she answered all questions asked by a reporter. If there had been any effort to disguise Mr. Biden's condition, Tanden answered, absolutely not. Bob and Katrina.
James Rosen in D.C. We appreciate that update.
And here now, the man leading the investigation in the House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer of Kentucky. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. Where are you at this point in the investigation? As we see more and more of these aides plead the fifth, it certainly raises a lot more questions about potential guilt.
It sure does. You know, there's no evidence that's emerged thus far after two complete transcribed interviews and then two attempted depositions where the witnesses pled the fifth on every single question. At this point, there's no evidence that would suggest Joe Biden had any idea who was using the autopen and what they were signing his name on. That's a very serious constitutional crisis here. That puts all those pardons that he signed and all the executive orders that he signed in legal jeopardy. So this is a very serious investigation. We're giving people in the Biden administration like Anthony Bernal the opportunity to tell their side of the story, to tell that, you know, Joe Biden was whip smart, knew exactly what was going on, and told people, yes, use my signature on this document and that document. And thus far, that hasn't happened. Plus, you add in the New York Times interview that you referenced earlier, where he admitted he didn't know every single person who was pardoning and didn't know that much about him. He said he authorized his staff to do that. That's not how the pardon process works. So he's incriminated himself, and I think that's where we are in the investigation. We're going to bring in everybody that was in the White House and give them an opportunity to talk and then go from there.
Congressman, I think exposing this is great, but that's just one thing. What comes after that legally? What can happen?
Well, I think what can happen is every pardon and every executive order that was signed with this auto pen at a time when Joe Biden was clearly not in a normal mental capacity, I think that every one of those documents could be deemed void and null in a court of law. And that is huge because many of these executive orders were done in the last 2 months of the administration when Donald Trump had won the election but hadn't taken office yet. We call that the lame duck period. These executive orders were done to Trump-proof this administration. A lot of the issues Donald Trump's having in court now with some of his actions are issues that these executive orders are making it difficult for Trump to win in court. Then, of course, some of the pardons pertain to real criminals and bad guys that didn't need pardoned, as well as the Biden family who need to be held accountable. And because they were pardoned, it makes it difficult to actually hold them accountable. So I think you're going to see accountability. And I think even bigger, you're going to see many of these major executive orders that pertain to energy policy, it pertain to federal employees, pertain to making it difficult to do things like shut down government agencies and make federal employees have to come back to work because of COVID. These will be thrown out in court because they were illegally signed by an auto pen, forging a president's name who didn't have any idea of what was going on. That's what it looks like. We're going to give people an opportunity to tell us differently.
Congressman, why did the White House open its own investigation into the auto pen, considering you're also already leading one in the House?
I have no idea. You'll have to ask them that. You know, we've given the Department of Justice several criminal referrals and investigations on deep state matters, and we're hopeful that they will focus on those and try to start holding people accountable. You know, that people always ask, and I think you referenced it earlier, why hasn't anyone been held accountable? All we can do in Congress is investigate. We turn the results of the investigation over to the Department of Justice. When we had Merrick Garland in the Attorney General's office, then, you know, that wasn't very reassuring, turning over our investigative work to him. But now that we have Pam Bondi, you know, I hope that we can start seeing some accountability.
So that's just it. Get this work done, get the investigation done, Congressman, and then it's got to go to the DOJ. They got to take it from there, and I think people will, you know, need to know that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, we welcome the DOJ to do any type of investigation they want. If they can find something out quicker than we can, they certainly have more tools at their disposal. So, you know, anything they can do to help will be helpful. We're trying to do this as quickly as possible because time is of the essence. Again, this investigation is about whether or not these pardons and executive orders are legal. And, you know, nothing that we've seen thus far would demonstrate that Joe Biden, in sound mind, authorized the use of that auto pen. And that's very serious. And I think that if you look at all the executive orders and all the pardons we're talking about here, this is a substantial potential legal development.
Yeah, sure is. All right. Chairman James Comer, thank you for joining us on American Agenda. Stop back with an updates for us soon. Appreciate it.
Thank you.